The reservation that never existed. Part 1. The Woman in Red. The champagne flute shattered against the marble floor, and in that crystalline moment, I knew my night was about to get interesting. It was December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, and Luminosa was packed wall to wall with the kind of crowd that made my grandfather's dream finally feel real. 20 years he'd spent hunched over a cutting board in someone else's kitchen. 20 years of coming home smelling like garlic and fish oil, his hands scarred from burns and cuts, his back permanently curved from years of bending over prep stations. When he'd finally saved enough to open his own place, the doctors told him his heart was giving out. He had maybe 5 years left. He spent those 5 years building Luminosa from nothing. A small Italian bistro in a neighborhood that nobody thought would ever be anything special. When he died, he left it to my father, who worked just as hard to keep it alive. And when my father's arthritis made it impossible for him to stand for 12-hour shifts anymore, he passed the keys to me. That was 4 years ago. I was 26 years old and terrified. The restaurant my grandfather built was charming but outdated. The menu hadn't changed since 1998. We had maybe 15 regular customers, most of them elderly folks from the neighborhood who remembered my grandfather. We were dying slowly, one empty table at a time. I took a risk. Actually, I took several risks that nearly destroyed me. I remortgaged the building. I gutted the interior and rebuilt it with floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed brick, and lighting that made everything look like it was glowing from within. I hired a photographer to shoot every dish like it was art. I created an Instagram account and posted religiously. I reached out to food bloggers, offering them free meals in exchange for honest reviews. I changed half the menu, keeping my grandfather's signature dishes, but adding modern interpretations. My father thought I was insane. My mother cried, certain I was throwing away 3 generations of family legacy. For the first 18 months, I thought they might be right. The debt was crushing. There were nights I couldn't sleep, lying awake doing math in my head, trying to figure out how long I could keep the lights on. Then a food critic from the city newspaper came in. She didn't tell us she was coming. She just sat down, ordered half the menu, and wrote a review that called Luminosa a revelation hidden in plain sight. The next morning, our phone didn't stop ringing. Within 6 months, you couldn't get a weekend reservation without calling 2 months in advance. That was a year ago. Now, on a night like tonight, we were the hottest restaurant in the city. We'd hosted 3 minor celebrities in the past month. A famous chef from New York had called to ask if he could cook in our kitchen as a guest appearance. We'd been featured in a national food magazine, and I was still the one who mopped the floors at closing. That's where I was when the woman in red walked in, pushing a mop bucket toward the storage closet, my shirt sleeves rolled up, my apron stained with sauce from helping in the kitchen during the dinner rush. I'd just finished helping seat the last reservation of the night, a sweet elderly couple celebrating their 40th anniversary. The restaurant was still buzzing with conversation and the gentle clinking of silverware against plates. She swept through the entrance like she owned the place. Tall, mid-30s, wearing a red dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Her hair was pulled back so tightly it looked painful. Behind her trailed 4 younger women, early 20s, dressed for a nightclub, all clicking along on heels that seemed architecturally impossible. I set the mop bucket down and moved to the host's stand, grabbing a small towel to wipe my hands. Our hostess, Maria, was on her break, so I'd been covering the door between tasks. "Good evening," I said, giving them my professional smile. "Welcome to Luminosa. Do you have a reservation?" The woman in red didn't even look at me. She was scanning the restaurant, her eyes moving across the exposed brick walls, the carefully placed artwork, the tables full of happy diners. Her expression was calculating, measuring, judging. "We need a table for 5, she said, still not making eye contact. Her voice had the practiced authority of someone who was used to getting exactly what she wanted. "The VIP section, the one by the windows." I glanced toward the section she was indicating. We did have a VIP area, 6 tables near the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city lights. Those tables cost extra to reserve, and tonight, 5 of them were occupied. The 6th was being held for a potential visit from a local news anchor who'd called earlier in the week, though she'd said she might not make it. "Of course, I'd be happy to help you," I said, pulling up our reservation system on the tablet. "Can I have the name on your reservation?" That's when she finally looked at me. Her eyes were cold, appraising, dismissive. She looked at my rolled-up sleeves, my stained apron, my disheveled hair. I watched her mentally categorize me. Staff, lower level, unimportant. Vivian Blackwell, she said slowly, as if I might not understand English. The owner is a personal friend of mine. He told me to come in any time, and I'd have the best table in the house. I kept my expression neutral, though my mind was racing. Vivian Blackwell. I'd never heard that name in my life. I knew every person who had pulled at this restaurant, every food critic, every influencer, every business connection. This woman was not one of them. I scrolled through the reservation list slowly, buying time to think. Her name wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. I'm sorry, Ms. Blackwell, I said carefully. I'm not seeing your name in our system for tonight. Are you sure you made a reservation? Her perfectly shaped eyebrows arched. I just told you. I don't need a reservation. The owner is my friend. Call him if you need to verify. The girls behind her were starting to pay attention now, sensing drama. One of them pulled out her phone, already preparing to document whatever happened next. I understand, I said, still keeping my voice level and professional. Unfortunately, our VIP section is completely booked tonight. I'd be happy to add you to our waiting list for a regular table, but it would probably be about 45 minutes. Vivian's face transformed. The cold appraisal shifted to something sharper, more dangerous. Excuse me. Her voice rose just enough to make nearby diners glance over. Do you understand who I am? I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't. I'm Vivian Blackwell. She said it like the name should mean something, should make me fall over myself apologizing. I'm a board member of the Westfield Cultural Society. I organize charity galas. I know everyone worth knowing in this city. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to something venomous. Including your boss. One of the girls behind her, a petite blonde in a too-short dress, stepped forward and held up her phone, taking a photo of me. We're documenting this, she announced, for when we report you. Sophia, get his name tag, Vivian ordered. I wasn't wearing a name tag. I rarely did. I glanced down at my plain black shirt and apron, realizing how I must look to them. Just another service worker, easily replaceable, completely forgettable. Ma'am, I understand you're frustrated. I tried again. But I can't give you a table that's already reserved. Then unreserve it. Her voice was sharp as broken glass. I'm sure whoever has it would be happy to wait for someone more important. Behind her, one of the other girls, a tall brunette with too much makeup, giggled. Imagine being so poor you have to work here, she said, not quite quietly enough. Like, what do you even tell people you do? The blonde with the phone laughed. Probably lies about it. I would die if I had to be a waiter. Something cold settled in my chest. I'd spent 4 years building this place back up. I'd risked everything. My savings, my family's legacy, my future. I worked 16-hour days, 6 days a week. I'd given up vacations, relationships, sleep, everything to make Luminosa into something my grandfather would be proud of. And this woman, who'd never worked a day of real labor in her life, thought she could walk in here and demand my respect because she knew rich people? I made a decision. You know what? I said, my voice suddenly warmer, more accommodating. I apologize. You're absolutely right. Let me see what I can do. Vivian's expression shifted to smug satisfaction. That's better. Just give me one moment. I held up a finger and stepped away, pulling my phone from my pocket. I pretended to make a call, turning away from them and having a fake conversation with dead air. Hi. Yes, it's Marcus from the front. I have Ms. Blackwell here. Yes, Vivian Blackwell. She says she has a standing arrangement. Oh, really? Okay, perfect. Thank you. I ended the fake call and turned back to them with my best apologetic smile. I am so sorry for the confusion, I said. There was a miscommunication in our system. We absolutely have a table for you. Our best one, actually. Vivian's smile was triumphant. I told you. Right this way, ladies. I grabbed 5 menus, the special ones we used for the VIP section, the ones without prices listed, and led them through the restaurant. The VIP table by the windows was still empty, the reserved sign sitting prominently in the center. I removed it smoothly and gestured for them to sit. Your server will be right with you, I said. And please, the first 3 rounds of drinks are complimentary, with our apologies for the confusion. Well, Vivian settled into her chair like a queen taking her throne. I appreciate that you fixed your mistake. What's your name? Marcus. Well, Marcus, I'll make sure the owner knows you eventually did the right thing. She waved her hand dismissively. You can go now. I gave a small bow, just mocking enough that it would bother her later when she replayed it in her mind, and walked away. Behind me, I heard them already talking. God, can you imagine having a job like that? One of them said. I know, right? Like, at what point do you just give up on life? I stopped by the kitchen and pulled aside one of our servers, a sharp young woman named Daniela who'd been working here for 2 years. Table 12, I said quietly. VIP service. Give them anything they want. Expensive cocktails, the premium wine list, whatever they order from the special menu. Daniela raised an eyebrow. The special menu? Marcus, do they know what that costs? They will. I smiled. Trust me, they will. Part 2. The Art of Consequences. Over the next 2 hours, I watched from various positions around the restaurant. I was everywhere and nowhere, clearing tables near them, refilling water glasses, helping in the kitchen, always within earshot, but never obvious about it. They ordered martinis. Not regular martinis. French martinis made with Chambord and premium vodka. $12 becomes $28 in the VIP section. Then they ordered appetizers. Oysters. Not just any oysters. The specialty Cushy oysters we flew in twice weekly from British Columbia, served with champagne, mignonette, and caviar. The ones that cost $18 each on the regular menu. The ones that cost $45 each on the VIP menu that didn't list prices. They ordered a dozen. That's $540 in oysters. Daniela brought them out on ice, arranged beautifully. The women barely looked at them. They were too busy taking photos, posing with their drinks, laughing at jokes that seemed designed specifically to belittle everyone around them. I was standing near the bar when one of them, the tall brunette, said, Honestly, Vivian, how do you know the owner? He must be, like, super old and boring if he has friends like that waiter. Vivian laughed, a sound like ice cracking. Oh, I don't actually know him that well. We met at a charity function once. I'm sure he doesn't remember me. But people like that. She gestured vaguely toward where I'd been standing earlier. They don't know any better. You just act confident, and they fold. The blonde leaned in, conspiratorial. So you lied? It's not lying. It's strategy. Vivian sipped her drink. You want to know the secret to getting what you want? Act like you already have it. Make people feel stupid for questioning you. Works every time. That's brilliant. Another girl breathed. Plus, Vivian added, it's not like that guy is actually going to check. He's a waiter. He probably makes minimum wage and tips. What's he going to do? Call his boss at 9 p.m. to verify my story. Please. They ordered more drinks. Daniela brought them. Top-shelf liquor, specialty cocktails, wines that cost more than most people's weekly grocery budget. They barely touched their oysters, but they ordered entrees. The truffle pasta, the Wagyu beef carpaccio, the wild-caught halibut with saffron beurre blanc. Every single one of them from the premium section of the menu. The dishes we made for the clients who didn't bother asking prices. At one point, I walked past to deliver drinks to an adjacent table. The petite blonde looked up at me and said, loudly enough for her friends to hear, Hey, Marcus, can I ask you something? I stopped, turning to her with practiced patience. Of course. How can I help you? Do you ever feel like your life is just, I don't know, worthless? She said it with fake concern, like she was genuinely asking. Like, you're just going through the motions, serving other people, never really mattering. Her friends erupted in giggles. I smiled. I love my job, actually. Every day is different. I get to help create experiences people remember for years. That's sweet. She tilted her head. But like, it's still just serving people. You know, someone has to do it, I said calmly. Sure, but she glanced at her friends for support. Don't you want to be someone? Like, someone important? I think everyone's important, I replied. Even people who don't realize they're being recorded right now. I gestured subtly upward. In the VIP section, we had enhanced security cameras, high definition, with excellent audio quality. We'd installed them after a celebrity had claimed we'd leaked information about their visit. The cameras proved we hadn't, and they'd stayed ever since. The blonde smile faltered slightly. Vivian, however, was too drunk and too confident to care. Whatever, Vivian waved her hand. Marcus, we need more drinks. And make them strong this time. I can barely taste the alcohol. Of course, Ms. Blackwell. I walked away, and as I did, I heard one of them say, Oh my God, he's kind of hot though. Too bad he's just a waiter. I could never date someone like that. Imagine introducing him at parties. Right? Another one agreed. Like, this is my boyfriend. He brings people food for a living. Hard pass. They all laughed. I stopped in the kitchen, leaning against the wall for a moment. My head chef, Ricardo, looked over from where he was plating a dish. You okay, Jeef? Just tired, I said. Those women at table 12 keep everything premium. Whatever they order. The good stuff. Ricardo's eyes narrowed. The really good stuff? The really good stuff. He grinned. I like where this is going. By the time dessert came around, chocolate souffle with real gold leaf, berry tarts with aged balsamic that cost more per bottle than some wines. The women were completely intoxicated. They'd moved past giggly drunk into sloppy, loud, inappropriate drunk. They'd racked up 5 drinks each, plus the 3 complimentary rounds. They'd ordered 2 appetizers each. Full entrees for everyone. Sides. Desserts. A bottle of wine that Vivian had pointed to randomly on the wine list because the description sounded fancy. That bottle alone was $800. At 11 p.m., Daniela brought the check. I watched from across the restaurant as she set it down in front of Vivian. The black leather portfolio sat there for a moment, ignored. Then Vivian reached for it, still laughing at something one of her friends had said. She opened it. The laughter stopped. I couldn't hear what she said, but I saw her expression change. Saw the color drain from her face. Saw her lean forward, squinting at the numbers like she might be reading them wrong. She looked up, frantically scanning the restaurant. Her eyes found me across the room. She snapped her fingers and pointed at the table. I took my time walking over. Is there a problem? I asked politely. This bill. Her voice was shaking, with anger, with shock, with dawning fear. This has to be wrong. This says $6,743, I said helpfully. Plus tax and gratuity. So $7,982 total. The entire table went silent. One of the girls actually made a small choking sound. That's impossible, Vivian said. We didn't order that much. Would you like me to go through it line by line? I pulled out my tablet. Let's see. 5 French martinis at $28 each. That's $140. 3 bottles of the 2018 Chateau Neuf du Pape. $800 each. Dozen Kushi oysters with caviar. That's $540. I went through every single item. By the time I finished, Vivian looked like she might vomit. But you said the first 3 rounds were free, she managed. They were. As you can see here, I pointed to the top of the receipt. The first 3 rounds are marked complimentary. Everything after that was charged normally. The menu didn't have prices. This came from the blonde, her voice rising to a panicked pitch. The VIP menu doesn't list prices, I agreed. It's standard practice at high-end establishments. Guests who typically sit in this section don't need to ask about cost. This is insane. Vivian's hands were shaking now. I can't pay this. I'm sorry to hear that, I said calmly. However, the meal has been consumed. The bill needs to be settled. I'll call the owner. She grabbed her phone. He'll fix this. He knows me. He'll. Please do, I said. I'd love to speak with him as well. She stared at me for a long moment. I saw the wheels turning in her head, saw her trying to figure out if I was bluffing or if I genuinely didn't know who she was claiming to know. She pulled up her phone, made a show of scrolling through contacts. Then she paused. The realization hit her. She couldn't call anyone. She didn't actually know the owner. She'd lied to get the table, and now she was trapped. I need to use the restroom, she said abruptly, standing up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. Of course, the restrooms are just past. But she was already gone, practically running toward the back of the restaurant. Her friends sat in frozen silence, looking at each other with growing panic. I stood there, patient, professional. One of them, the brunette, looked up at me with tears starting to form. We don't have this kind of money, she whispered. We thought. Vivian said it would all be free or cheap, or... I understand, I said, not unkindly. That's unfortunate. 20 minutes passed. Vivian finally emerged from the bathroom, her makeup fixed, her expression set in desperate determination. She slid back into her seat and looked up at me with what she probably thought was a winning smile. Okay, so here's what we're going to do, she said, her voice artificially bright. The food was actually pretty mediocre. The drinks were watered down. The service was slow. So I think, to be fair, you should cut this bill in half. 7,000 becomes 3,500. That's more than reasonable. No, I said simply. Her smile cracked. What? The bill is accurate. The food and drinks were exactly what you ordered. The service was excellent. I'm not reducing it. Then I'll call the owner. She pulled out her phone again. I'll have you fired. Please do call him, I said. I'll wait. She stared at me, trapped. Then she made a decision. She pulled up her phone, did some frantic typing, and then turned the screen toward me. See? Text conversation. With the owner. He said we could have whatever we wanted on the house. I looked at the screen. The contact was labeled Luminosa owner. The messages were clearly just typed in the last few minutes. Hey, at your restaurant tonight. Great. Enjoy everything on me. Thank you so much. I looked at the contact information, then back at her. That's not the owner's number, I said. He has multiple phones for business, she shot back. You wouldn't know all of them. You're right, I agreed. I wouldn't know all the owner's numbers. If he had multiple numbers. So let's call this one right now. If it's really him, and he says your bill should be comped, I'll take care of it immediately. I pulled out my own phone, ready to dial the number on her screen. Vivian's face went through several emotions in rapid succession: panic, anger, calculation, resignation. This is ridiculous, she said, her voice rising. I know people. I could shut this place down with one phone call. Do you understand who I am? What I can do to you? Several nearby tables were openly staring now. Our other diners, the ones who'd paid their bills without issue, were watching this scene unfold with a mixture of fascination and horror. Ma'am, I said, my voice dropping to something harder, more authoritative. I need you to stop yelling in my restaurant. Your restaurant. She laughed bitterly. You're a waiter. No, I said quietly. I'm not. I reached into my apron and pulled out my wallet. From it, I took a business card and set it on the table in front of her. Marcus Delgado, owner and proprietor, Luminosa. The silence at the table was absolute. Vivian picked up the card with shaking hands, staring at it like it might be fake. My grandfather built this restaurant 40 years ago, I said, my voice calm but carrying to the nearby tables. My father ran it for 30 years after that. I've been working here since I was 16 years old. I took over 4 years ago. I renovated this entire building. I changed the menu. I built the reputation that made you want to come here in the first place. I leaned forward slightly. I have never met you. I have never promised you anything. And I have been watching you for the past 2 hours treat my staff and my establishment with nothing but contempt. You lied to get this table. You ordered expensive food and drinks without checking prices because you assumed you'd talk your way out of paying. And now you're trying to scam your way out of a bill you legitimately owe. Vivian's face had gone from pale to red to pale again. One of her friends was openly crying now. I gave you this table as a courtesy, I continued. I gave you 3 free rounds of drinks. I didn't charge you the $1,000 seating fee that comes with the VIP section. And now you're going to pay for what you ordered, or I'm going to call the police and show them the security footage of everything that happened tonight. I straightened up. Your choice. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then, slowly, Vivian reached for her purse. Her hands were shaking so badly, she could barely get her credit card out. She set it on the table. One by one, the other girls pulled out cash, bills, cards, whatever they had, piling it on the table with whispered promises to Venmo her the rest. I picked up the credit card and the check, walked to our POS system, and processed the payment. When the receipt printed, I brought it back. Sign here, please. Vivian signed. Her signature was barely legible. Thank you for dining at Luminosa, I said pleasantly. Have a good evening. They left without a word, without looking at anyone, walking out into the cold December night with their heads down and their dignity shattered. Part 3. The Aftermath. The restaurant was quiet after they left. The few remaining diners went back to their meals, though I caught some of them smiling at me or giving subtle nods of approval. Daniela came up beside me, shaking her head. That was intense. Yeah. I was suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had been carrying me through the confrontation was draining away, leaving me hollow. You okay, boss? I will be. I looked at the receipt in my hand, still slightly warm from the printer. Print me a copy of this, will you? Without the oysters line. She raised an eyebrow. Why? Because I want to remember the night someone tried to scam my restaurant and failed. I smiled slightly. But I don't want to remember that we charged someone $45 per oyster. That part does feel a little mean. She laughed, and went to print the receipt. I spent the next hour closing up the restaurant, helping the kitchen staff clean, counting the register, doing all the end-of-night tasks I'd been doing since I was a teenager. When everyone else left, I stood alone in the empty dining room, looking at the tables, the windows showing the city lights, the exposed brick walls that had cost me everything to restore. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. "How was tonight?" I smiled and typed back. "Busy. Good. I'll tell you about it tomorrow." I didn't expect to see Vivian Blackwell again. I was wrong. 2 days later, Christmas Eve, a man walked into Luminosa at 3 in the afternoon. We weren't open yet, but the door was unlocked because I was inside doing inventory. He was in his 60s, well-dressed, with the kind of authoritative presence that comes from money and power. "We're not open until 5. I called out from behind the bar where I was counting wine bottles. "Are you Marcus Delgado?" I looked up. "Yes. I'm Robert Blackwell." He said it like I should recognize the name. Vivian's father. "Oh." I set down my clipboard and walked over, keeping the bar between us. "How can I help you, Mr. Blackwell?" "You can start by explaining why you charged my daughter $8,000 for dinner." "I charged her what she ordered," I said simply. Every item on that bill was something she specifically requested. From a menu with no prices. From a VIP menu at a VIP table that she obtained through deception, I corrected. She claimed to be a personal friend of mine to get that table. She wasn't. She lied. She's a 27-year-old girl who made a mistake. She's a 27-year-old woman who tried to scam my business and then refused to pay for what she consumed. I kept my voice level. "Mr. Blackwell, I understand you're upset, but your daughter wasn't a victim here. She was a perpetrator." He was red-faced now, angry. "I want to see security footage." "Of course." I pulled out my tablet and loaded up the security system. "What would you like to see? The part where she claimed to know me? The part where her friends asked my staff if we felt worthless because of our jobs? The part where she tried to forge text messages to prove she had permission to not pay? Or the part where she threatened to have me fired from my own restaurant?" I turned the tablet around and started playing the footage. He watched, and with each passing minute, his expression changed. The anger shifted to discomfort, then to something that looked like shame. When it finished, he was quiet for a long moment. I had no idea she. He trailed off, then shook his head. "She told me you harassed them, that you deliberately ran up their bill to take advantage of them." "I did run up their bill," I admitted. "After I heard them mocking my staff and bragging about scamming the restaurant. I served them exactly what they ordered, from a premium menu they chose to order from without asking about prices." Jesus. He rubbed his face with both hands. "That's not how I raised her." "With respect, Mr. Blackwell, that's exactly how you raised her." I said it gently but firmly. She felt entitled to lie her way into getting what she wanted. She felt entitled to treat service workers as less than human. She felt entitled to not pay for things she consumed. Those attitudes don't appear out of nowhere. He looked at me, something broken in his expression. "You're right." We stood there in silence for a moment. "I apologize," he said finally, "for wasting your time, and for what my daughter did. The bill was fair. I'll make sure she pays back every penny she borrowed from her friends." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "For what it's worth," he said, looking back at me, "my father was